1. The girl who corrected him. Sophie Laurent reached the university building 12 minutes late, carrying the smell of coffee, butter, and rain. Her black coat was wet at the shoulders. A paper bag from the bakery was crushed beneath one arm, and her hair had escaped the loose knot she had tied before sunrise. She had worked through the night at Maison Rue, shaping croissants for people who paid $8 for breakfast and still complained if the butter was not warm enough. Then the subway had stopped between stations. Then a man had spilled coffee near her shoes. Then the security guard at the university entrance had studied her temporary student card as if she had printed it at home. By the time Sophie pushed open the lecture hall door, every face in the room turned towards her. Wonderful. Professor Adler stopped speaking. The guest lecturer did not. He stood beneath the bright stage lights in a dark suit that looked too expensive for a university building. Tall, broad-shouldered, calm in the dangerous way of a man who expected the world to listen when he spoke. His name was displayed on the screen behind him. Ethan Cole, founder and chief executive, Cole Horizon. Sophie knew the company. Everyone did. Cole Horizon had begun as a financial technology startup and grown into one of those companies that claimed it was changing the future while charging people monthly fees to access it. Ethan glanced at Sophie as she slipped into the last empty seat. Only one glance. It was enough to make her feel as though he had noticed everything. The wet coat. The tired eyes. The flower on her sleeve. The fact that she did not belong among students wearing clean trainers and carrying new laptops. Sophie lifted her chin. He looked away first. So, Ethan continued, what separates the people who succeed from those who remain exactly where they started? Several hands rose. A young man in the first row answered. Opportunity. Ethan shook his head. Opportunity matters, but it is not the answer. Education. Someone else offered. Useful, Ethan said. Still not the answer. He walked slowly across the stage. Discipline. Consistency. The willingness to work when everyone else is resting. The room became quiet. Ethan had the voice of someone used to selling certainty. Deep. Controlled. Smooth enough to make hard ideas sound simple. I grew up in a small apartment in Brooklyn, he said. My mother worked 2 jobs. We had unpaid bills on the kitchen table and no powerful family waiting to rescue us. A few students leaned forward. I did not have connections. I did not have inherited money. What I had was a decision. I decided that failure would not be permanent. Sophie rested her forehead against 2 fingers. She had heard versions of this speech before. Rich men loved talking about the years when they had not been rich. They made poverty sound like a difficult training program. Something heroic. Something clean. Ethan continued. People often say the system is against them. Sometimes it is. But the uncomfortable truth is that many people remain trapped because they stop pushing. They become tired. They accept excuses. They wait for conditions to improve instead of improving themselves. Sophie looked up. Professor Adler shifted in his chair. Ethan did not notice. Or perhaps he did not care. If you are willing to work harder than everyone around you, Ethan said, eventually the world has to respond. Sophie laughed. It was not loud. It was still loud enough. Ethan stopped. His eyes found her immediately. Something amusing? He asked. 30 students turned towards Sophie. She could have remained silent. She should have remained silent. Her scholarship depended partly on Professor Adler's recommendation. Her immigration status depended on remaining in good academic standing. Her rent was due in 9 days. This was not the time to make a billionaire dislike her. Sophie raised her hand. Ethan's mouth almost moved. Not quite a smile. You already have the floor, he said. Sophie stood. Her knees ached from the overnight shift. I am trying to understand your argument. Which part? The part where the world is forced to reward hard work. Ethan studied her. I said it responds. That sounds better, Sophie said. It is still not always true. A few students shifted awkwardly. Professor Adler cleared his throat. Sophie. It's fine, Ethan said. His attention remained on her. Go on. Sophie placed her hands on the desk. Some students here work before class. Some work after class. Some do both. They send money home. They care for parents. They care for children. They live with 3 roommates because rent in Manhattan costs more than their entire family earns in a month. Ethan's expression changed slightly. Not softer. Sharper. That does not make discipline less important, he said. I did not say it did. Then what are you saying? I am saying you are turning survival into a character test. The room went completely silent. Ethan folded his arms. You think ambition is unfair? I think your version of ambition is incomplete. And what would complete it? Luck, health, family, race, citizenship. Who recommends you? Who believes you? Whether your mother becomes ill. Whether you are born in New York, Paris, Lagos, or a village where the nearest university is 3 hours away. Ethan's jaw tightened. Sophie knew she should stop. She did not. A person can work harder than everyone around them and still lose, she said. That does not make them lazy. Sometimes it only means the world did not move. A girl near the aisle nodded. Someone else whispered, exactly. Ethan looked across the room, then back at Sophie. You are from France? His question irritated her, as though her accent explained everything. Yes. And yet you came to America. I came to study. Why here? Because the program is good. Not because America creates opportunity. Sophie smiled without warmth. America creates opportunities. It also creates very expensive invoices. A few students laughed. Even Professor Adler lowered his face to hide a smile. Ethan did not laugh, but something bright appeared in his eyes. Interest. That was worse than anger. So what should I tell them? He asked. That hard work may fail, so they should not try? No. Then what? Tell them to work hard. But do not tell them that everyone who loses failed because they did not want success enough. Ethan stepped closer to the edge of the stage. And what should successful people do? Remember they were helped. I was not. Sophie held his gaze. Everyone is helped. The words landed between them. For the first time, Ethan looked genuinely offended. My mother died before my company became profitable, he said. My father disappeared when I was 11. No one handed me anything. Sophie heard the wound beneath the anger. She should have softened. Instead, she said, someone taught you to read. Someone hired you. Someone gave you your first opportunity. Someone answered a message or opened a door. Ethan said nothing. Sophie's voice became quieter. We all stand on something. His eyes remained fixed on hers. For several seconds, the room seemed to disappear. There was only the space between them. His pride. Her exhaustion. His certainty. Her refusal to be impressed by it. Then Professor Adler rose. We should move to questions about entrepreneurship. The tension broke. Sophie sat down. Her heart beat too quickly. Ethan returned to the center of the stage, but his polished rhythm had changed. He answered questions, discussed investment, leadership, and technological growth. Yet every few minutes, his eyes returned to the back row. To her, Sophie pretended not to notice. She noticed every time. After the discussion, students surrounded Ethan. They asked for photographs, internships, business cards, and advice. Sophie packed her old notebook into her bag. Professor Adler appeared beside her. You enjoy danger, he said quietly. I enjoy accuracy. You publicly challenged one of the university's largest donors. I challenged one sentence. You challenged his entire religion. Sophie looked towards the stage. Ethan was shaking hands with a student, but his gaze moved past the crowd and found her. Again. He will survive, she said. Professor Adler sighed. I am less certain about your scholarship interview. Sophie's stomach tightened. That is unfair. So is life. I believe that was the subject of your speech. She looked at him. He smiled faintly. Your argument was good, he added. Your timing was terrible. Sophie pulled on her coat. Story of my life. She left before Ethan could speak to her. Outside, the rain had grown heavier. Yellow taxis moved through the wet streets. Umbrellas collided along the pavement. Manhattan glowed beneath grey clouds, all glass, noise, and impatience. Sophie stood beneath the university awning and checked the bus schedule. 23 minutes. Her phone battery was at 4%. She had slept for less than 2 hours. She still had to return to the bakery at 5 the next morning. A black car stopped at the curb. Sophie barely noticed it until the rear door opened. Ethan Cole stepped out. He no longer wore his suit jacket. His white shirt was open at the neck, and the rain touched his dark hair before he reached the awning. Up close, he looked younger. Not kinder. Just less untouchable. You left quickly, he said. I was afraid another speech might begin. His eyes narrowed. Do you always insult people who offer you their time? Only when they describe it as an offer. For 1 second, he looked almost amused. Then he glanced towards the road. Where are you going? Home. My driver can take you. No. You do not even know where the car is going. I know where I am going. It is raining. I had noticed. Ethan looked at her wet coat. You will be waiting at least 20 minutes. 23. Get in the car. Sophie gave him a cold look. That sounded less like an invitation. His expression hardened. I am offering you a ride. And I am refusing. Why? Because I do not know you. You argued with me in front of 40 people. That did not create trust. It created something. The words came out lower than before. Sophie felt them in the small silence between the rain and traffic. She looked at him more carefully. He was not flirting. Not exactly. But his attention felt too personal now. Too focused. Do you always follow women after university events? She asked. Only the ones who accuse me of worshipping hard work. I said you simplified poverty. You also said everyone is helped. They are. And you believe refusing help proves your point? Sophie's fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. This is not help. What is it? A man who is not used to hearing no trying to turn a small kindness into a victory. His eyes darkened. You think very highly of yourself. No, she said. I think very carefully about men who think highly of themselves. A taxi passed through a puddle, sending water across the curb. Ethan stepped closer instinctively, placing himself between Sophie and the spray. The gesture surprised them both. He looked down at her. She became aware of his height, the warmth of his body, and the faint scent of cedar and rain. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, You are exhausted. She hated that he could see it. I am fine. You have flour on your sleeve. I like flour. You worked last night. It was not a question. Sophie looked at him sharply. How do you know? You arrived smelling like a bakery. That is either impressive or disturbing. Where do you work? That is none of your business. His mouth tightened. You argue that people need help, then reject it when it is offered. Because help is not always free. My driver is not going to send you an invoice. No, but you will remember. Ethan became still. Sophie knew she had touched something. What does that mean? He asked. It means men like you collect moments, favors, debts, proof that people needed you. You know nothing about men like me. I know you built an empire because being powerless once frightened you. The rain struck the edge of the awning. Ethan's face changed. His anger did not disappear. It became quieter. More dangerous. You heard one story about my childhood, he said. Do not pretend you understand me. Then do not pretend you understand why people fail. They stared at each other. Sophie's bus appeared at the far end of the street. She stepped away from him. Ethan looked towards it. That bus will take an hour. I have a book. You are impossible. So I have been told. She walked towards the curb. Behind her, Ethan said, "You think money solves everything?" Sophie stopped. She turned slowly. Rain blew beneath the awning, touching her face. "No," she said. "You think money solves everything." Something raw entered his expression. He looked past her, towards the wet city. When he answered, his voice had lost its polished confidence. "It solves more than love ever did." The bus doors opened. Sophie should have stepped inside. Instead, she remained where she was. Because for the first time that afternoon, Ethan Cole did not sound arrogant. He sounded like a man who had once loved someone enough to learn that lesson. And Sophie suddenly wanted to know who had taught it to him.